Hi, everybody. I know we're starting a little late, and everybody's saying it's Calvary time, but I think we're finally hitting the Calvary time limits too. We're kind of waiting on some family. They'll hopefully be here within the next minute or two. So we just want to start by saying thank you to everybody that's here. Thank you so much for coming to celebrate our son Judah. What we plan to do here today, you can see the slideshows. We know so many people prayed for this little boy. I never even got to see him, and we're just so thankful for everybody that prayed in faith. Besides our family of 6, really only my mom and Julie got to see Judah and to meet him. So we want to take a little time and let you guys kind of hear the story of everything we went through from finding out about Judah's case until the end of the journey we had with Judah. So I'm going to hand it over to Christy. She's going to tell you kind of the timeline from start to finish. But again, I just want to say thanks for coming out. Then after Christy's done and after we've kind of told Judah's story and we've seen everything, we're going to worship together for a few songs, with a few of the songs that really helped us through Judah's entire journey. So I'm looking forward to that. We've got family and friends here that are going to worship with us on the team. So stick around. We're going to have some great music and just spend some time in the presence of the Lord after we tell Judah's story. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Christy.
I'm really nervous, guys. Okay, well, Judah Michael Boyd was born on October 16th. We do not know the exact time. I'm going to start crying already. Hold on. He was born at 30 weeks. He was 2 pounds, 12 ounces, 15 inches long. He lived here on earth with us for 53 days. Judah's birth was pretty traumatic, causing some brain bleeds, a lot of bruising, all things that we knew when we actually received his case, but we went into it believing that God would heal him. And we wanted to make sure that he would have love and a family there with him no matter the outcome of his life. So I'm just going to start from when we got the call about him. So on Friday, October 21st at 3:04 p.m., we received Judah's case through email. We immediately read his entire story up to that point, and me and Nick instantly knew without even having to even talk to each other that this little boy was supposed to be ours. And so we immediately emailed them back and said, we are interested in Judah. His name wasn't Judah then, but we are interested in him, and we would like to pursue to be his family. And so they reached back out to us. We had to fill an application out. This was actually an agency that we were not signed up with. They had just, since Judah was born, they kind of shot his case out to every agency and consultant company that they knew that was Christian to find him a home. And so we had to kind of go through the application part of it, which didn't take very long, but the next morning we had received word that we were officially in the running to become Judah's family. Let's see, I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. Okay, I have a timeline, guys. I don't want to miss anything. Ever since we got that call from him, I don't think I slept one night. I think I prayed for him every moment that my eyes were open. I prayed that God would heal him and that God would just give him that perfect family that was meant to be his parents and his siblings and to love him no matter what. And I prayed to God. I told him, I said, if it's not meant to be us, then that's okay. I just want this little boy to have a family and to have somebody to be there with him as he's going through this. Like, there's nobody sitting next to him. There's nobody singing over him. There's nobody praying for him. There is nobody there with him. And that was my prayer from the very beginning, was God, just give him the perfect family to be there with him. And I did this every single night. I don't think I slept at all. And that was okay. It was fine. I think I was preparing myself anyway. But I cried a lot. My heart was breaking through all of that. I didn't even know what he looked like. We didn't even receive a picture until the day before we left to go meet him. And so I just kind of envisioned what he would look like. And of course, my envisioning was cords and all this stuff coming out of him, and kind of a scary vision at first. On Tuesday, October 25th, I spent that whole morning on the phone with Lifeline, which is the agency that we went through. They called to kind of interview me, and then they'd call back, and every time they called, my heart would get really excited. Like, oh, are they calling to tell me that he's ours? Are they calling? And every time it would just be like, we're just calling to check in. We found out that Judah now has 2 brain bleeds, and a lot of our families are concerned and kind of backing out. We want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's happening and if you still want to pursue him. And they said, we want you to take time to pray about it and just let us know. And like, I already knew right there that I'm not giving up on this boy. He is supposed to be ours. We're not pulling out. And I text her because we, at that point, like, it was literally like I was talking to my best friend. Like, this agency we worked with, I can't even tell you how amazing they are. Like, they were just there at every point of this, at every surgery, at every area of his journey. There was a Lifeline agency or a Lifeline social worker there with me through most of all of it. And so when I talked to them, it was just like I'd known these people my entire life. Like, that's how comfortable it was. I was able to pour my heart onto her and letting her know, like, how we felt. And it was really cool. Like, it was, yeah. But, so I talked to them a few times that morning, and I think it was like about 3 or 4 that afternoon, I had got another call from them. Of course, I was excited, and she kind of started the conversation as, I bet you're just really tired of me calling you. And I'm like, oh, no, not at all. And she was like, well, we just wanted to call and let you know that we have chosen your family. And I walked out to the living room where all the kids were sitting, and I mouthed to them, he's ours. And they all just started yelling. So I had to run back in the bedroom because I was still talking to her. I'm like crying, and we found out that he was ours. And so we started that process of just a few things. They didn't want to bombard us. But we had found out that with all of his injuries and his brain bleeds and the fact that he was at 30 weeks, that we would have to spend at least 10 weeks in Alabama, that I would have to spend at least 10 weeks in Alabama, which, if anybody knows me, no. Like, I don't like doing things on myself, especially that far away, and I was pretty scared but also excited because I was like, I get to go meet my new son, like, this will be worth it. All of this is going to be so worth it to bring this sweet little baby boy home. And that's what we told our kids, and they were all surprisingly just chilled about it. Like, we all were. Like, there was no tears. It was more just like, we know that we're supposed to be doing this, so we're just going to go do this. And on that Friday, me and Nick loaded up to leave for him to go drop me off in Alabama to be there for the next 10 weeks. And we didn't actually get to meet him that Friday because we had to wait for a social worker to meet us at the hospital, to do paperwork, to all of this that ended up taking way longer than we thought. But on Saturday, October 30th, we got to meet Judah. And he was this little bitty tiny 2-pound, 7-ounce baby at this time because he had lost weight. But he was perfect. He had the perfect hands, the perfect feet. I mean, he was just gorgeous. He looked different than what we had expected. We thought we were going to walk into a bruised up little baby and all this. No, he was not. By the time we got there, the bruising was gone, and he just looked like this super tiny little bitty baby, although he was really long. And his feet were really, really long, and his hands were really long. And so we're like, boy, this is going to be a pretty big kid. Like, he's going to grow up to be a big boy. And so we got to meet him. We walked in, and we recorded it, but we're not going to show the video because we didn't know how to work it in. But we went to meet him, and me and Nick were looking over him. He was in his little incubator, so, we could only put our hands in. And I looked down at him, and I said, where are your mommy and daddy? And the entire nursing staff was standing behind us, and they were all just bawling. They had all been praying for a family for him, that he'd been there by himself. And I didn't know that they were bawling until later. Our Lifeline social worker was like, I don't know if you saw this, but everybody was all over here just watching you guys meet him, and they were all just bawling, and they were so excited to know that this little boy now has a family. And so it was a very sweet moment. So Nick took me to dinner, and then he left. And so here I'm alone now. Which I say that, but I literally was never alone. The amount of people that were texting me and checking in on me and calling me and just making sure that had what I needed. What do I need to send you? Do you need this? Do you need that? Like, I never really felt alone, even though I was, if that makes any sense at all. But actually, that evening, after Nick left and I got settled in, I stayed at a home called Shannon's House of Compassion, and they actually help families with babies in the hospital or loved ones in the hospital. You have to have a social worker from the hospital call. And so we were able to get into there. I had my own room, my own bathroom, and the owners of the house were Christy and Johnny. And Christy likes to bake cookies and decorate cookies. So we had a lot in common already. They were kind of like my parents away from home. That's how they were. They were just the sweetest. I mean, made me breakfast every morning, would drive me to the hospital if it was raining. I mean, like, I can't even, they were amazing. They normally don't let people stay there. You know, if they're not there, they let me stay there and house sit when they would go back home. And they were really, really amazing. But I got settled in there, and I went back to the hospital. And to settle in next to Judah, to just be there with him. Because I, at this moment, was like, oh, he's tiny. I won't be able to hold him. I sat next to him, and his nurse, which his name was Teddy, said, would you like to hold him? And I was like, what? Like, I can hold him? Like, that's a thing? And he was like, yeah, definitely. And so that first day we met him, I got to have my first skin-on-skin with Judah. They literally tucked his little body right inside of my shirt. Like, I mean, he fit there perfectly. I think I sat like this for 45 minutes because, I mean, he was tiny, and I was like, I'm going to break him. I'm going to pull something out. I'm like, I was pretty nervous. And so I think I was like this, and by the time I put him back, I think like every bone in my body was like, oh, what did I just do? But through that, it was still the sweetest first moment. I was the first person to ever hold him. And that to me was amazing, because when you adopt a baby, you just don't know like what you're coming into, if they're gonna bond to you. But I was the first one to hold him, and so he got to bond. Like, this is literally probably the first day right there, that picture up right now. And it was amazing. Like, it really was amazing. So they put him back in his bed, and I, of course, went home that night. One thing I forgot to say is Christy at the Shannon's House of Compassion actually taught me and Julie how to make homemade bread and homemade cinnamon rolls. So if you need a recipe, let me know, because it's really good. Okay, so where am I here? Okay, so October 31st, they dressed Judah up as a little sweet pea. And I did not actually get to see it because I did it when I went on my lunch break, and they took a picture, and unfortunately when I called the hospital, they did not keep the pictures, and so I did not get to have that. But if you look up here, his little sweet pea right there at the hat, that is what he wore on Halloween. And I'm really sad that I didn't even get to see that, but still, I kind of can picture it in my mind what he looked like. But the nurse had told me, like, we put a green blanket underneath him, and we laid it on him, and it was so cute, and I'm kind of sad. I reached out to the nurses. I am friends with multiple nurses from Alabama now, and they searched everywhere they could for the picture, and they could not find it, and so that's okay. But anyway, so on this day, we had done a brain scan, and Judah's ventricles had grown on the day. I remember holding him for 3 hours that day and laying my hand on every part of his body, declaring healing over him, every single part of his body. I spoke affirmation words over him, not every day, but as much as I could. I told him, you're loved, you're worthy, you're chosen, and you're wanted, and you have a family that loves you. Whew. On November 1st, we had 3 days of snuggles. Whew. And skin to skin on bonding time. This is the day that Judah aspirated on formula while I was holding him, and his vitals completely crashed. The nurses flew in and took him from me really fast and got him back on his bed and started going to town to get him stable again. I think I stood back there like this the whole time. Like, I was kind of in shock. They asked me multiple times, are you okay? I'm like, yeah. And I thought I was for a little bit. Shock's kind of weird. Like, it hits you and you're kind of like, oh, okay, I'm cool. But then as soon as I kind of got him good and put back into his bed and got his heart rate back up and his breathing back up, I just lost it. I had to leave and go into the waiting room, and I just broke down. The NICU there has a waiting room, and they actually have a staff member that is over the waiting room. They kind of check in on you, help you. Her name was Heather, and she immediately came out to me and was like, "What's going on? What's wrong?" And I'm telling you, this lady, every person I met, I don't even know how to explain how it was like I have a whole another family in Alabama. Like, they were just right there for me at every single moment, and it's great. Like, it's good because I don't know if I could have done a lot of it by myself. And so having the support here and there was much needed for sure. So anyway, he aspirated. They got him back. They decided to do an x-ray of his stomach and lungs, and they kind of turned him on his side. And when they turned him on his side, a big puff of air kind of rose, saying that something's wrong. And they said, we have to immediately take him to surgery and figure out what's going on. At this time, they figured he had perforated an intestine or something. Judah was actually born with cocaine in his system, high doses of cocaine in his system. The mom did not do drugs the whole time. She was not a drug addict. She did not know that she was pregnant, and so she actually had gone to a party and had done cocaine within that first 72 hours, and that's what put her into labor. And just that one time of cocaine use damaged his insides extremely. They had found out that he had a hole in his bowel, holes in his intestines. They had to take half of his colon out, his entire appendix out, part of his large intestine, and repair holes. They had to pull his large intestine to the kind of edge of his tummy. It's called a stoma, and it would hang out, and he had to poop in a bag for 4 weeks while everything healed inside of his body. After his surgery, I got to see him for maybe 5 minutes. It was shift change. They kick you out at shift change for a few hours. And so I got to go back and see him, and they had said he did really good during surgery. His blood pressure was a little low, but that's normal. So I said, okay, and I went home. On November 2nd, I walked into a very sick baby. Judah's blood pressure was in the teens, and they could not get it to come up. He was on the highest dose of every medicine that his body could handle, and they could not do anything else for him. The doctors came over and sat down with me, and they said, we're hopeful that he'll make it, but we don't think that he's going to make it through the night. You need to call your husband. He needs to be here with you. And so I made my first phone call that I never thought I'd have to make. And I called Nick, and I said, you have to come now. They're telling me Judah's not going to make it through the night. I need you to be here. So Nick, this was, 4:30 or 5 in the afternoon, so he had to drive through the night to get there. Hope was one of our social workers. She came and sat with me the entire time, sit next to me. I never left his side, not once. I got there at 7:30 that morning. I did not leave his side until 5:30 a.m. the following morning. Through this time, I had reached out to multiple friends, multiple families. We put it on Facebook. I was getting scriptures. I was getting songs to sing over him. Everything was coming in, and me and Hope sat there, and we spoke scriptures over him. We spoke healing over him. We just poured everything that we had into this little body that by this time was actually 4 times the size of his body because of all of the swelling and the amount of medicines that he was on. It was a pretty scary sight. He had brain things all over his head because they thought he was having seizures, so they were trying to monitor those. So his whole head, he looked like a mummy on the top, was wrapped up because they didn't want those to come off. It was a very, very scary sight. A prayer time was set for 9 p.m. that night. I know a lot of you guys saw that, and a lot of you guys prayed. People were praying for Judah all over the country. And I really do mean all over the country. We have people that we know that are in other countries that they reached out to them, and this prayer chain was huge. At 9 p.m., I held Judah's foot in my hand because it was literally the only thing you could really touch on him without causing horrible pain. And I held his foot in my hand for an hour while everybody prayed. And I sit there with his little foot in my hand, and within 10 minutes, I watched his blood pressure go from 15 to 30. And it just kept going up from then. He had not been able to pee, which was another big thing, which is why he was so swollen. Me and Hope sit there and watched his catheter slowly start to just fill up with pee and just drip a little bit into his little holder that holds his urine. And at this time, I mean, I was excited, but I still was like, you know, what does this mean? Like, is this a good thing? It was still really touch and go. Nick showed up about 1 a.m. and Hope went home, and Nick took over, and we sat there together for a few hours, and we prayed over him, and Nick was holding his little hand, and Nick was like, I got to go get some sleep. Let's go get some sleep. And I said, I can't leave him. Like, I'm not going to leave him. Like, I said, I have to stay here. Like, I can't do it. And I stayed next to him, and Nick had walked out to his car to go get some sleep. He also had just drove, like, whatever many hours. And at 5:30, I finally could not keep my eyes open. So I was like, I'm going to go sit in the waiting room. They're about to do shift change. I'm going to get kicked out anyway. I slept in the waiting room for 30 minutes. And I remember waking up and saying, it's the morning. Like, he made it through the night. Like, he made it through the night. I just kept saying that over and over in my head. He made it through the night. Because if I have to be honest with you guys, I thought he was going to die. I did. Like, I had every hope that God would heal him. But I had this feeling like, this is it. Like, I only have 3 days with him. Like, he's going to die. Well, God proved me wrong, and I'm thankful for that. So, let's see here. I remember telling God, I forgot to share this. I remember telling God, listen, I know you have a plan, and if he's meant to go home with you, I'm going to have to be okay with it, but I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be one jealous person that you get to hold him, and I don't. And I remember telling him that, and I'm like, I will be so jealous that you get to hold him, and I don't get to hold him. And I might have scolded a little bit, but, you know, in those moments, things come out that you don't expect. And so that morning, we went and sat with them for a few more hours. Hillary from Lifeline, which Hillary is actually the social worker that was with Judah since day one. She was there when he was born. She was the one that was giving us all the updates on him. She was the one going to visit him when nobody else could be there. She actually came and sat with him so me and Nick could go and try to eat something and try to shower. I don't think I ate anything. I did shower, and I think I may have fell asleep for 20 minutes, and I was like, we got to go back to the hospital. Like, we got to be at the hospital. And so we got up and we went back to the hospital. Whew. Nick stayed with me for a couple days. I told him, you're not leaving until they tell me that he is stable. Like, you cannot leave me here until I hear the word stable come out of the doctor's mouth. And that was a few days that he stayed there with me. Judah's medical team was not only surprised, but extremely happy to see that he had made it through the night and that he was just getting better like crazy fast. Like, it was so fast. Like, it was, I mean, NICU life. I know a lot of people out here have had NICU babies. It's minute by minute, day by day, hour by hour. I mean, it's just, you just don't know what you're ever going to walk into. I do have to say that I had days that I literally had to drag myself into the hospital because I was so scared what I was going to walk into or what they were going to tell me, because I'd go home and things were great, and I'd walk in and things would be really bad. And that's how NICU life is. It is just, whew, it's another level of, yeah, it's crazy. I've had 2 babies in NICU, but not the way that Judah was in there for. So on November 8th, we're going to kind of get through this as quickly as I can. 7 days after surgery, I was finally able to hold him again. I didn't get to do skin on skin this day because we wanted to see how he would react from swelling and pain. So I just got to kind of just regularly hold him all swaddled up, and it was amazing. I got to start doing his cares with him again. He got to start eating again. And on November 9th, I was able to do skin on skin for the first time, and it was so sweet. Skin on skin time, for all you new moms, you know that is just like the best best thing ever. It really is. You get to smell them, and like, I could never look at him because he was so tucked into my shirt that when I looked down, I couldn't really. That's why most of my pictures are like this, because I couldn't really. And he, he had CPAP and things covered his face, so you couldn't really get too many good shots of him. Unfortunately, he did smile a lot. Was never able to get any of that on pictures because of all the stuff that he was hooked up to. On November 10th, Judah was moved back to his CPAP, and this was also the day that he got to meet his siblings. So Nathan, Allie, Chloe, and Leah all got to meet Judah. Whew, another day where the nurses were all teary-eyed, watching as they all were saying, "Oh, he's so cute, he's so adorable." And Leah even told one of the nurses, "Please do not let him run away." And I'm like, "Sweetie, he can't run." She goes, "Mom, you don't know that." And I'm like, okay. So she literally told the nurses, "Don't let him run away." Kids have the funniest sense of humor. On November 11th, Nick got to hear him cry for the first time. He had went and spent the day with him, and I stayed with the kids at our Airbnb, and Judah let out his first little cry. I was very sad I got to miss it, but was very happy that Nick had got to witness it since he wasn't able to be there as much with him. I'm just going to kind of do some dates, and so I'm trying to kind of keep the timeline. November 15th, Judah got his first shot, and he was cranky. What's new, right? I mean, it was the crankiest baby I've ever seen, really, from having a shot. But he was still pretty tiny, and so I could imagine with the tininess and his tiny little legs that they gave a shot in, probably didn't feel the greatest. November 16th, Judah turned a month old. I got to snuggle him for the first thing in that morning, and at 2 o'clock we went to change his diaper, and he was completely dry. I mean, the nurses looked at each other and were like, what's going on here? Like, there's no pee here. As soon as I took that boy's diaper off, he peed everywhere. I mean, he soaked his entire bed, and he was smiling the whole time. And then the nurse goes, "Well, do you want to hold him again?" And I'm like, "Well, absolutely." And so we were like, "Yeah, we know what you're doing here, buddy. You just wanted to be held again." So I got to hold him for another 2 hours that day. Holding him for any amount of time was always a big deal because when they're that tiny and hooked up, like, they usually only want you to do about 45 minutes a day, and these nurses were very nice. They let me hold him a lot longer than I was supposed to, but he just slept so well and didn't act up, and so they didn't have a need to take him away. November 17th, Judah had his first eye exam, and it went really well, no concerns. They would be concerned for him with the fact that the amount of oxygen he was on. After a while, it can cause issues with eyes, especially if he's getting too much oxygen, and it's just kind of like, blowing up into his eyes, so it was a big area that they had to really watch for him. November 18th, 16 days after surgery, they took Judah to surgery again. I was a hot mess. His first surgery was scary, and I was not prepared for another surgery. Thankfully, Amanda and Glow had actually came to visit me, and they were there and were able to sit with me in the waiting room, and I felt really bad for them. I'm like, "I can't believe you guys are here, and you have to sit in the waiting room with me," and they're like, "It's fine. That's why we're here." And it worked out perfectly. God knew I needed them there right then, so I'd have somebody to keep me occupied during his surgery. So what had happened was his stoma, which was his intestines that was coming out, actually retracted into his body and was like level and very irritated, and that's not a good sign. So they had to go back in and either re-pull it out or reattach. This was only 2 weeks after his surgery, and they said it would be 4 weeks before they would reattach everything. The doctor went in there, and everything was healed, and they were able to actually reattach his intestines. So it actually was a good thing. Like, we were very excited. He did great. I remember after surgery, I'm like, "How's his blood pressure? Is he peeing?" Like, all the things that he didn't do last time. Like, I was very, like, my nurse probably thought it was crazy, but I was like, I need to know. Because it was another one of those surgeries that I literally had 5 minutes with him afterwards before shift change. And I was like, I need to know that he is peeing, his blood pressure good. His blood pressure actually that time was in the 100s. So he went the opposite way, but they weren't concerned about it. And it leveled back out perfectly fine. And so this was actually a good surgery, and everything went really, really good with that one. So, but I was a hot mess because I was like, I can't go through this again. Okay. On November 19th was a day of rest for Judah, and he got to rock his very first Christmas hat. Today, I might not say this right, is hematocrat. Is that right, Jordan? Yeah, okay. I used to just say, hey, what's his blood count? And they would like, oh, you mean his and I'm like, yeah, that thing. Every time I'd say that, they'd always have to say the right word. And I'm like, can't you just, it's blood count. It means the same thing. But anyway, so they'd have to, his blood count actually had become a little bit of concern. It was really low, which meant he was losing blood somewhere. And we didn't know if it was from surgery, if it was from his brain bleeds. And so I think at this point, I had reached kind of that level of like, I don't know if I can take much more. And I remember going home that night, calling Nick, bawling my eyes out, like, I don't know what's wrong with him now. They don't know what's wrong. I don't know what to do. And I remember sitting in the bathroom where I was staying and just hitting the ground and just crying and praying. And God, I want him to walk, and I want him to talk, and I want him to play, and I want him to be able to be a normal boy, and just pleading with him. And calling Nick, and Nick's like, it's okay, like, we don't even know this is a bad thing. And I'm like, it's a bad thing. Like, at this point, it just was a bad thing. And actually, we never really figured out why his blood count was low. They think that it had something to do with his brain bleeds, because every time he had a surgery, the medicines they actually give him, it will affect his brain. It will irritate his brain. And so, after his second surgery, his little soft spot actually had started to swell. And so they kind of thought that's probably where this blood was going, or like why we were getting these low blood levels. I may have overreacted that night, and I think I remember telling Nick, I'm like, I'm sorry, or you think I just kind of was done with getting bad news. And it was kind of my breaking point, but I think that I needed it. Like, I just needed to, like, get it all out, cry it all out, have that ugly snot dripping down your face, like, please don't look at me because I look horrible, kind of cry. And I think it was good for my heart, too. On November 21st, the hospital sent Judah's brain scans over to Birmingham just so that we can keep an eye on it. They can get on his radar, because Birmingham would be where they would send him to do his surgery, because Huntsville could not do brain surgeries. They had a neurologist there, but they did not do the surgeries. And so they decided to send his brain scans over to see if he would be ready for a shunt surgery, was what they were thinking that he would need. A shunt surgery would kind of go down the back of your neck, and it would drain the blood from here into the belly, and then the belly acids would eat the blood up. And so that was what we were thinking that he was going to have all along. Birmingham actually decided that there was no rush, and that they wanted him to heal from his surgery that he had just had, that he wasn't in an unstable situation with his brain. So they were like, no, we're not going to do anything. Right now, we're just going to let him kind of, chill. Backtracking a little bit, the day that he had his first surgery when we thought he was having seizures, he actually was not. They could not pick up a single seizure on any of his scans. He would kind of did this, like, together thing, which is what they thought was him having seizures, but apparently it was just his body kind of on overload, and so it was just kind of like doing this kind of tick, because it had just had so much going on and so much medicine in there that at this time we were supposed to do an MRI of his brain, but because seizure activity looked like it was not happening, they were like, oh, we'll just wait till closer to discharge and do his MRI. And so that's why we did not get, I know that we had posted he was maybe going to get one, but then they decided against giving that to him because they didn't see a concern. The neurologist actually looked at me and said, I don't want you to be concerned about his brain, because there are things we won't know until he's like 2 or 3. And so we kind of moved the brain bleeds to the back of our heads, and we're like, okay, we're not going to focus on that. We're going to focus on the rest of his body being healed. Okay, so November 23rd, the family drove down for Thanksgiving, and they came in to visit him on the 24th. They got there too late, 23rd. And on the 25th, Judah was wide awake when the kids and Nick got to come see him, so that was really nice for them to get to see him wide awake and not just sleeping. He was very wide-eyed and just looking at everybody, and so those moments really made my heart very happy to see that. This was also kind of the day that his soft spot was really more swollen than normal, but also not swollen enough to be concerned. about it. On November 26th, Judah was holding his breath, and so it would cause him to brady. A brady is when vital signs go down, heart rate goes down, breathing goes down, and he was having them every like 20 minutes. He would kind of clench down on his tube, and so that was one of those days that you were just like, ugh. And I was really bad ever since he had surgery. I could not stop looking at the computer screens that like showed you his heart rate and his breathing. And the nurses told me multiple times, quit looking at you don't need to look at that. Like, that's for us. And I'm like, it's literally right there. Like, how do I not look at it? I know what all this stuff means and everything I've been through. Like, I was really hooked on watching those numbers. So anytime it would go down a little bit, I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? Like, it freaked me out. But, where are we at here? So soft spot had gotten a little swollen. His oxygen was dropping. The nurses thought he was pretty uncomfortable from the extra pressure on his brain, and so I think we ended up starting a small dose of morphine just to kind of help with any kind of pain that he was having. And then that was the day that the family drove back home. On November 28th, I woke up with a cough, and I could not go to the hospital. They told me that I could not come to the hospital until I had no symptoms for 24 hours. And that was not easy. The only good thing is that Hillary came and sat with Judah. She sent me pictures every day. They had a camera on him at the end of his bed, so I can literally sign on and see him whenever I wanted to. Nick and the kids could sign on and see him whatever they wanted to. So that was really nice. Let's see. So on this same day that I could not be there, Judah had some lab work done, and it came back a little off. Further testing showed that he had actually got an infection from the tube in his throat, which does happen with babies if they're chewed for too long. And so he was started on antibiotics, nothing that they were too concerned about, just like a normal thing that happens with NICU babies. So the head ultrasound was still showing that he was stable, even though he had all the extra swelling. Like I said, Hillary came up and spent time with him, which, gosh, I'm so grateful for them. They literally would take me to coffee. I had churches there, bringing me gift cards and gift baskets full of snacks and things I couldn't even eat anyway because you could not have anything back there with him, so I didn't hardly eat any of that stuff, but I was still grateful for it. I was pretty bad about eating or drinking, period, because I didn't want to leave him, and I couldn't do any of that with him. And so normally I would eat dinner, and that would be it. So yeah. But anyway. So I had my cough, and on December 1st, I was still unable to see Judah. This was the day that they transferred him to Birmingham Children's of Alabama Hospital to prepare for his shunt surgery, or so I thought. December 3rd, I was still unable to see Judah as they were working on my arrangements for where I was going to stay. This is when Julie drove up to help me get moved over and to kind of keep me busy while I couldn't be there. They decided to do a MRI this day. That was pretty much right. The day after he got there, they did an MRI because they wanted to know what was really going on deep down in his brain. The nurse said, well, you should get a phone call. I didn't get a phone call that day. I didn't get a phone call the next day. I finally called, and I'm like, so what happened with Judah's MRI? And they're like, oh, they haven't called you? And I said, no, I really would love to know, though, you know. And so I finally got a call that evening, and the doctor didn't really explain very well to me. All he said was that both of Judah's brain bleeds are now grade 4, and he had a lot of fluid built up around his brain, which was causing pressure against his spinal cord and against his brain, and that he said that he may never walk or talk or could develop cerebral palsy. But I knew in my heart that God would have that final say, and so I did not get freaked out. This is the first time that Nick actually freaked out, and I did not. So it was a little different, very different. Anyway, on December 4th, I was finally able to get moved to Birmingham with the help of Julie, and we got to go see Judah for the first time, where he was in a private room where I could do whatever I wanted to do, which was nice. I could sleep there, eat, drink, whatever. By the time, this was a week that I didn't get to be by him, and he had grown up to over 5 pounds. I walked into a chunky little baby boy, and he was cute. On December 5th, today I walked in so excited to see Judah, and the doctor came in and pulled up a chair and quickly explained to me what they had seen on the MRI. And I'm saying, when I say quickly, it was like this. And so my brain was like, what? Because I didn't understand all he was saying. But this is what he told me. The entire outer cortex of Judah's brain is gone and replaced with fluid. It's dead. It will not grow back. We have to make a choice, whether we remove the vent or we go ahead with surgery, knowing that he would never walk, talk, eat, or breathe on his own. My heart literally sank. I was not prepared for that news. I had gone from a hospital saying, don't worry about his brain, to his brain's gone. I had to make the second hardest call in my life to call Nick to tell him what they had told me. I was mad. I was sad. I was confused. I was mad at that doctor. I was like, you haven't even looked at my son and you're telling me he's not going to make it? Like, how can you do this? Thank God Julie was beside me, because she was there and she helped me through it and cried with me and tried to make me eat a spicy chicken sandwich and horrible tea. It was not good. But I'm thankful she was there, that she had came down. God knew she needed to be there in that very moment. I'm going to share this, and she's probably going to be mad at me. She told me yesterday, we went for lunch, and she said, I had prayed that God would use me to help you. I knew I couldn't help you financially, but I knew that I was supposed to do something. She said, but when I sit next to you that day that you got that news, she goes, I told God, this is not what I was praying for. But I told her, I said, but God knew. And he had a plan, and that was your purpose. And so I'm very thankful she was there, even though we both cried the entire time. In horrible tissues, by the way. Don't use hospital tissues. Okay, so at this time, Nick called me and he said, do you want me to come or do you want me to bring the kids? I said, you need to ask them, because this is a family choice. I want them all to be a part of this, and I want them to be here if we decide that this is his time to go. And so they all came, and Nick's mom came too, so that we would have not only help with the kids while we were in the hospital, but to be there with us. Ugh, my nose is running. Whew. I remember telling God, if you want him, you have to take him. You cannot make me make this choice. This is not fair. I should not have to choose. And I remember telling Nick this, and he said, I know, but unfortunately, this is a decision we're probably going to have to make. Whew. On December 6th, Nick and I were able to have a longer talk with this doctor that I thought I hated. Come to find out, he was a believer. He was pro-choice and was the most passionate man that I've ever met. What'd I say? Oh, Lord, pro-life. Anyway, I remember telling Julie, like, I don't like this guy. Like, he's cold. And he came in and told me and Nick, I don't like giving that kind of news when we're doing rounds, because I can't be personable. I can't sit and talk to you. I have to give you the facts, and I have to get out of there, because they have nurses, they have doctors, they have, But he set us down, and I mean, he really laid it out for us. The parts of Judah's brain could not be repaired. It would not grow back. The only part of his brain that was left was the stem, and that's what keeps his heart beating. His doctor, like I said, was a believer, pro-life, and was very passionate. He explained to us that in Judah's case, we would be prolonging a death, not a life. He explained that he could remove the breathing tube, and there was a chance he would breathe. But he believed that Judah would pass quickly, and that the breathing tube was the only thing keeping him alive. So we decided to pray and to seek the Father and take the next 2 days just to be with him and love him. And we prayed together, talked a lot. The kids stayed with Nick's mom at a hotel, and me and Nick actually stayed at Ronald McDonald's house, because that's where I was staying at the time, so we were able to have kind of that alone time. I even got to ask my children, what do you guys think? What do you feel like we're supposed to do? And they all said, we don't think it's fair to him to have to live like this. And I knew in my heart the same thing. I wanted to be selfish. I didn't want him to go, but I knew that this was not a moment that I could be selfish. I had to think of what was best for him. The surgeries that he would have to endure, because it would be numerous surgeries. Surgeries that wouldn't change anything. That would just put him through things he wouldn't be fair to his body. Me and Nick both knew that the best choice was to remove the ventilator and to put it in God's hands. And I told God, If he's meant to breathe, he'll breathe. If he's not, then he's going home with you, and you have the final say. When we remove that tube, you literally have the final say. But I still believed in my heart that he would breathe. And I still declared it over his entire body numerous times. Whew. On December 7th, all the kids got to come in, which they don't let them do, but they did. Each of them got to hold him and love him and be with him. We got to do some fun family art, as you can see here with him, because at this time we knew the following day that we were going to remove the vent. In a day and time of sorrow, that was the most joyful day that I had, because my babies got to hold their brother. And it warmed my heart so much. Like I said, I laid hands on him and I declared healing over his entire body. That evening, Lifeline came in and we officially signed the placement papers that made him a Boyd. Whew. On December 8th, Nick and I arrived at the hospital first thing in the morning so we could spend time with him. I held Judah for a couple hours and sang Mama's lullaby over him. Well, I tried to. I held Judah for as long as I could. We played worship music. We prayed over him. We took footprints, handprints. We recorded his heartbeat and prepared to remove the tube. Nick asked if I wanted to hold him as we removed the tube, and at first I was hesitant, but then I knew in my heart that yes, I did want to hold him. They came in and they gave him some morphine. This was to, they said that at this point his brain was gone, he wouldn't feel anything, but that didn't mean that his body wouldn't react. And so the morphine was there to kind of calm any of kicking or movements. I declared healing over him and told God that he had the final say. We removed the tube. I held him for 15 minutes. And watched him gasp 3 times. And then I thought he was gone. The doctor came in and his heartbeat was still barely beating. So Nick held him the last 5 minutes as he passed away. In that moment, I had prayed, God, if he's supposed to go, let it be fast. Don't make him breathe for hours or days. Just if he's supposed to be with you, let it be fast. It was 20 minutes, and he was in the arms of our Father, running and laughing and playing, all the things that I had prayed for him. So even though he didn't answer my prayer the way I wanted him to, he still answered my prayer. Whew. We got to bathe him, brush his hair, take some pictures of him, and then we jet it. It's hard to stare at him when he wasn't there. We kind of both got a little sick to our stomach and was like, okay, this is getting weird. Because we knew we weren't there. We both gave him a final kiss on his forehead, and we said, this is not goodbye, but see you later. Ultimately, like I said, Judah's healed. Removing his vent did reveal that that was the only thing that was keeping him alive, and a man-made machine is not what's supposed to keep us alive. Whew. Even though he answered my prayers and he is healed, does it take the hurt away? No. Does it hurt that I can't hold him? Yes. But it does give me joy to know that he has eternal life right now. Whew. As we left Alabama, literally going over the state line, I looked over my shoulder and saw this little toddler boy sitting in there going, Mommy, waving at me. Whew. I know Nick thanked everybody for all of our prayers, but every single one of you guys is a part of his story. It's not just us. You guys all had a moment of prayer, of just loving him, not even knowing what he looked like. But you guys, every single one of you are part of his story. every one of you. Everyone tells us and tells me, oh, you blessed him so much. He was so lucky to have you. No. We were the lucky ones. We were the blessed ones. Judah taught me a deeper love than I ever thought was possible. Like, I'm a lover, like I am, but this love is different. Judah showed me that we should, I'm going to get preachy for a minute. I don't care how mad you are at a family member. I don't care what has separated you guys. Judah has taught me that you should love each other every day like it's their last day on earth. Because literally you don't know when their last day on earth will be. We are not promised tomorrow. And that's the love that Judah taught me, is we love them with everything inside of us every day of our life, every second, every minute, every hour. Whew. That's Judah Micheal.
You know, it's been such an honor to be the family that Judah needed. And we're just thankful for everyone that's been a part from start to finish through our adoption journey. And we've had quite a few people ask us what our plan is. And actually, as we were driving home from Alabama, Christy looked at me and said, "Do you believe this is the end of adoption for us?" And I told her I don't believe it is. And she said the same, that, you know, we were the family that Judah needed for the 53 days he was here. And what a privilege it was to be that. But we know that there are still many kiddos that need homes. So we will move forward in adoption again. And this will be child number 6 now. We will have 6 kiddos, not just Judah's number 5. We spoke with Lifeline, the agency that has been fantastic to work with. And we told them that we didn't believe our journey was done. And Melinda, our social worker, who's been with us through every step of the way, said, "We're glad to hear you say that." She said, "We've actually been talking. I've had conversations with the director here, and every dime that was put towards Judah's adoption has been set aside for your next adoption." So as we move forward, we know that God's got it. Yeah, not only that, in the last week of Judah's life, we had 3 different grants come in behind and say that they were going to finish the cost for Judah's adoption. A couple of those grants have said that that money will be available for the next adoption as well. So we're blessed in that knowing as we move forward that God's going to provide. So now I'm going to ask my worship team to come up. We're going to worship God because He's good. And through all of this, we've never questioned that. And the songs we're going to sing they were very impactful to us in every moment. So if you would, we're going to turn the lights down low, and we're going to take this from just a memorial service. We're going to worship our Father today. When we get to the last song, it's going to get a little rowdy, and I hope it's just going to happen. We had this song called "Lion" that was one of our theme songs for Judah, and it's not a quiet song. So we'll get to that. But please, as we worship, as we play, let's just spend some time in the presence of God, thanking Him just for His goodness. Can we do that? Of course.
Say something really quick that I thought could be useful for anyone. I think when we go through really hard things, As believers, it's hard, but as non-believers, first thing they want to say, if there's a God, why did this happen? If you believe in God, why is he allowing this to happen to you? And sometimes I think people, a lot of people have prioritized their faith on healing, because healing is a very, very, very powerful testimony. Healing lives today, like we always say. We're living in the book of Acts right now. The same God has always been, But I think a huge testimony of faith is when you go through something like this and you can still stand before many and say that God is he's still reigning, he's still in control. And I'm really thankful for the faith of Nick and Christy and their families. And I know we're all so thankful that they were there for Judah when Judah needed them. But their testimony from that and their testimony from what they're doing now, still proclaiming Jesus, is really amazing. And those are the testimonies that we need to hold in our hearts, because no matter what, the verse that I always tell people, because I get hounded with that question all the time, if there was a God, why? It's in Matthew, I believe, and it says, a servant is no greater than his master. We are servants of Jesus Christ. He is our master, and he was beaten, he was tortured, and he suffered for all of us. Now, that I'm not saying, we should all have to suffer, but it's just part of life. We're not promised on earth, gold and all this stuff, but we will have eternity with him if we hold that faith. And so I want to personally say thank you to everyone who prayed for Nick and Christy and their family, and I'm very thankful for Judah's story in his life, and I know we'll see him again.
Would you stand to your feet and worship with us? Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only want to hear your voice. We're hanging on every word. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we want to know you more and more. We're hanging on every word. Come and speak to us, O Lord. Let's sing that again. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only want to hear your voice. We're hanging on every word. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we want to know you more and more. We're hanging on every word. 'Cause when you speak and when you move, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. When you come in the room, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. You're changing everything. The Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we're leaning into all you are, and everything else can wait. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, come now and breathe upon our hearts. Come now and have your way. 'Cause when you speak and when you move, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, it changes what we see and what we see. When you changes what we see, what we see. Oh, you're changing everything. Oh, and when you move, and when you move all our fears. And when you move us to tears. When you move all our fears. Oh, when you move us to tears. And when you fall, we fall on our knees. And when you fall, we fall at your feet. Oh, when you fall, we fall on our knees. And when you fall, we fall at your feet. 'Cause when you speak and when you move, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, changes what we see and what we see. When you come in the room, when you do what only you can do, it changes us, changes what we see, what we see. You're changing everything. Change Your thoughts are higher than mine. Your ways are deeper than mine. Your thoughts are higher than mine. And your ways are deeper than mine. Spirit of the living God, Spirit of the living God, we only want to hear your voice. We're hanging on every word. freedom, where the Spirit is bounty in the wilderness. Oh, you will only satisfy me. There's honey in the rock, water in the stone, manna on the ground, no matter where I go. And I don't need to worry now that I know, oh, everything I need you got. There's honey in the rock, purpose in your plan, power in the blood, there's healing in your hands. Started flowing when you said it is done. Oh, everything you did's enough.
I keep looking, I keep finding, you keep giving, you keep providing. I have all that I need. You are all that I need.
I keep praying, you keep moving. I keep praising, you keep proving. I have all that I need. You are all that I need. Oh, I keep looking, I keep finding. You keep giving, you keep providing. I have all that I need. You are all that I need. Oh, I keep praying, you keep moving. I keep praising, you keep proving. I have all that I need. Oh, you are all that I need. Yeah, I have all that I need. Oh, you are all that I need. Yeah. Honey in the rock, water in the stone, manna on the ground, no matter where I go. And I don't need to worry now that I know, oh, everything I need you got. There's honey in the rock, purpose in your plan, power in the blood, there's healing in your hand. Started flowing when you said it is done. Oh, Jesus, your blood is enough. There's honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock.
There's honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock. There's honey in the rock. Oh, can you just declare that? There's honey in the rock. There's a path through the wilderness. Ooh, how sweet it is to trust in you, Jesus. Ooh, how sweet it is to trust in you, Jesus. Ooh, how sweet it is to trust in you, Jesus. We trust in you, Jesus. Jesus, you are enough. We trust in you, Jesus.
Trust in you, Jesus.
We trust in you, Jesus. God, we give it all to you. We trust in you, Jesus. Whatever it looks like, we trust in